Call on the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, you can always tell when a government is in trouble by the way they handle themselves in the House. And a clear giveaway is when the Speaker can't face the opposition and they turn and they look at their own backbenchers. And Mr Bennett, sir, spent the whole 10 minutes staring at Mr Quinn. I don't know if he's particularly fond of him or whether he just doesn't like Mr Henry or what it is. But I tell you what, sir, he should spend more time facing the camera and less time ogling Mr Quinn, and he'd be in better shape. But he's got good reason to worry, sir, because when we go around the country, we're hearing two very clear messages. From the business sector, we're hearing this message: why can't this government make a decision? Just one decision and stick to it. There's Handbrake Joyce back in the chamber. The handbrake turn on Super Gold Card. Auntie, they call him in the blogosphere, Auntie Joyce. I had an Auntie Joyce and she's offended by that nickname. She was far more decisive than that minister. Far more decisive. So the business community's saying, why can't they make a decision? What ordinary New Zealanders are saying around New Zealand, and Madam Speaker, you certainly have improved in looks in the last couple of minutes, Madam Speaker. You've certainly improved in the last couple of minutes. What ordinary Kiwis are saying is, my God, why don't they stop making the decisions they've been making? If GST is the answer, what was the question? We don't want this GST rise. We didn't vote for it. They didn't tell us they were going to do it. They told us the exact opposite, Mr. Speaker, that no government with half a brain would raise GST. No government with half a brain. I don't know what that says, sir, about the current government. The problem, sir, with this government is serious. Very, very serious. There is no plan for growth. Sir Roger Douglas is back in the chamber, sir. Now, Sir Roger Douglas had a plan that many of us don't agree with, but at least he had a plan, and that is the difference between this government and other governments. Mr. Speaker, hard-working Kiwis have struggled through the recession. On our recent bus tour of the country, we met with many families who are having trouble. The member may smirk, but there are real people out there with real challenges, real trouble feeding their children from week to week. And people who are below the average wage facing a rise in GST are saying, we can't cope. We are genuinely afraid of what, and it's all very well for government members like Mr Bennett to smirk away when there are real Kiwis suffering. And whatever this government does, when Labor comes back, you can be assured that we will have a tax package that is fair to all New Zealanders. Because under National, the people at the bottom know they're going to get it in the neck. The people in the middle will be lucky to break even. And the people at the top, the very few, will get a big wad of cash that they don't need. And they didn't even vote for. So why is this government doing it? If GST is the answer, what is the question? It is not a plan for growth. It does not address the structural imbalances in the economy. The runaway properties, oh yes it does, says the handbrake. Oh yes it does. Minister Joyce thinks GST is a structural policy. He thinks he can stop a property bubble with GST. Well, we've got news for you, Mr Joyce. It's the wrong tool for the wrong job, and it'll have the wrong effect for you on the polls. Mr Speaker, there is no plan for growth. This government was elected with a mandate for change. Mr Key said step change. He said we were going to take a bold step forward into a brighter future. We were going to catch up with Australia. And what happened? The 2025 task force was dead before the ink was dry on the paper. Sir Roger hasn't forgiven them for that. They've abandoned even the language of step change because they can't even do bit-by-bit change. They can't change anything, sir, because they can't take a decision. Why is that? Because handbrakes are around every time there's a focus group. Take mining. I personally think mining national parks is a very stupid idea because you lose more from our brand image and our tourism revenues than you get in digging up a bit more coal in the Coromandel. But But if you were going to make that stupid decision, not you, Mr. Speaker, if they were going to make that stupid decision, you'd at least expect them to have the courage of their convictions and make it. But oh no. Another week's focus groups told them what we already knew. This was political suicide, so you can imagine the cabinet meeting. Handbrake to the fore. Handbrake says, you can't do that, I've seen the focus group numbers. And Mr. Key withers in the headlight of public opinion, and once again, this government looks like a possum on the road waiting to be roadkill. And it won't be long, sir, till the next election when we can examine the entrails of the failed experiment of the great national government. The government that was never Mr. Quinn, Mr. Speaker, wants a doctoral thesis in the House. I will be happy, Mr. Speaker, to match Mr. Quinn thesis for thesis, but I will give him first try. But I'm not going to hold my breath, Mr. Speaker, because I'm sure Mr. Bennett wasn't looking lovingly at him for theoretical policy advice. Mr. Speaker, there's no plan for growth. National's tax package is unfair, and nobody voted for a rise in GST. Let's talk about... interjections, Mr. Speaker, are supposed to be rare, reasonable and witty, and that was none of the three. None of the three, neither rare nor reasonable, and are certainly not funny, Mr. Speaker. Why are they trying to distract New Zealanders from the truth, from the real story? Because there's no plan, there's no game plan, there's no policy. It's like buying a used car and you get it home, you lift the bonnet and you find there's no engine in it. That's what New Zealanders are increasingly saying about this national government. There's no plan, there's no there. What they've got is a leader who would rather preserve his own personal popularity than do what's right for New Zealand. Smile and wave, watch the focus groups, and don't make a decision. Don't make a decision. Well, that's great for them in 2009 in a long honeymoon. It might work for a few months in 2010, but it won't work in 2011. It won't work in 2011 because when you have 3 years in government, you're supposed to govern, not spend the whole time complaining about the world economy and the previous government. The New Zealand public expects leadership. They have not had leadership from John Key. They have not had leadership from this national government. They've had sound bites. They've had focus groups. They have had a 9-day fortnight that's been cancelled. They've had a cycle track to nowhere. That was the best idea of a job summit. There is no plan. There is no future. And that is why, sir, New Zealanders are talking about leaving. That's why young New Zealanders are looking at their parents and saying, I don't know if I can get a job in New Zealand that will fulfil me. That's absolutely outrageous, says Handbrake. Handbrake says it's outrageous that New Zealanders are losing hope. One of the reasons they're losing hope is because they can't get broadband, Minister of ICT. 2 years ago nearly, we had the Broadband Investment Fund ready to run, and Maurice Williamson promised rollout within a year. 15 months in, that minister's yet to make a decision. There isn't yet a bankable project in the hopper, and not 1 millimetre of broadband fibre has been laid under his $1.5 billion hole. Not 1 millimetre. And the ICT sector's saying, why is John Key loading that minister up with portfolios when he can't even do the basics in the one he started with? Can't do the basics in the one he started with. Where is our faster, cheaper broadband? Because it's not here. And that, sir, is one of the reasons young New Zealanders are going overseas. They are going overseas because they've lost hope in the so-called brighter future that they were promised, in the step change that they were promised. They've lost hope. They've lost hope. And that's what we heard as we went around the country. If you think the answer to our problem was raising GST, where have you been? Because ordinary New Zealanders don't like that idea, and they can tell the difference between a tax rise and a plan for growth. There's no plan for growth. There's no step change. There's no bright